Well, sorry everyone, I got a little bit behind the eight ball. It's Monday, so of course, logically, that means it's time for the Sunday Sports Q&A. Remember again, these Q&As are supposed to happen at the regularly scheduled times every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So if you want your questions answered, just go to Twitter, tweet your sports-related questions to @pfspot_Schlegel. Just do that. Every Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday Q&As. Hopefully going forward, I'll have them done at the appropriate time. So let's get started with this Q&A, though. And Anthony Fana asked, do you think the Mets acquiring Tulowitzki and Carlos Gonzalez from the Rockies would be a good move or a bad move? Well, apparently you've been playing one too many video games where you think that would actually be possible. You also are living in a fantasy world. Of course, if they acquired Tulowitzki and Carlos Gonzalez, that would be a good move, but it would never freaking ever happen. Come on, man. Tulo and and Gonzalez? I don't think so. Never know. I take that back. Stranger shit has happened. You never know. But I would think in theory it would be a good move, although I would have to anticipate the Mets would have to completely and totally empty out their farm system in order to acquire those two guys. And while the Mets have some prospects in their system, they don't have that quality of depth in their system, not to mention the fact that they're not anywhere near, I think, really being a serious World Series contender again, in my opinion. Akuda Charumba asked, do you think there's a piece missing from the Buffalo Bills making the playoffs? And if so, what is it? The first piece is good quarterback play, which I wonder if they're going to get more of out of EJ Manuel in 2014. Some of the playmaking ability they've lacked on the outside over the years, they may have indeed finally gotten in their first round pick, Sammy Watkins. You know, the Bills have some nice pieces, but you watch the Bills over the years, you've been able to maybe say that for years, is that they've had some nice pieces, but there's always been something off. There's always been something missing. Those certain kind of combustible elements that organization just didn't have, and frankly, I don't know if they have yet. I would anticipate 2015 being more likely a playoff season than 2014. That's just my view. And then your other question, are the Bucks a threat for a wild card in the NFC under Lovie Smith? And is Carl Nix's retirement a major loss for them? Nix's retirement kind of is what it is. I mean, you know, when healthy, this guy was a hell of a guard, but the problem was he just wasn't healthy lately. So it's not really that much of a miss because or loss because you plan for life without him anyways because you haven't had him much lately. Are the Bucks a threat for the wild card? Absolutely. When you look at the NFC, you know, you look at their own division. I think Atlanta will be improved. New Orleans will probably be the same, if not take a small step back. I think Carolina will regress big time. I think Tampa Bay could potentially match up with teams like Detroit and Chicago, or maybe a Washington or New York, or, you know, in the West, if teams like Arizona, St. Louis, and Seattle, San Francisco beat up on each other so damn much, there's a chance, you know, that the Bucks could get into the playoff picture in the NFC. Although, again, I would anticipate that being more likely in 2015, but I wouldn't totally rule it out in 2014 either. At Multiple Man 78's first question, he asked, who is your favorite player from the Big Four in men's tennis and why? None. Why? Because I don't care about tennis anymore. I hate to break your heart, but that's just the truth of the matter. I don't care about tennis anymore. Used to. Not anymore. At least I'm talking about men's tennis. Yeah, don't care. Do not care about Nadal or Federer or Djokovic or whoever the fuck. Just don't care enough to have an opinion. Um, I believe it would be an amazing spectacle if the Ryder Cup was held at Augusta. Do you agree? Yes. I think at some point in time it should be at Augusta. I think that would be an appropriate Ryder Cup type of course, even though they seem to tend to like to have the link style courses sometimes for that event, even here stateside. I think Augusta, you know, it's a fair but tough challenge of golf. I think it's something that both sides would have equal experience playing on that course. So, you know, I'd be perfectly fine with Augusta hosting a Ryder Cup. I think it would be a great thing. I mean, the setup and the layout of the course, I think, would bode tremendously for the experience of the Ryder Cup. And your last question, if you could visit one sporting theater not on American soil, what would it be? One sporting theater not on American soil. First one that comes to mind is Wembley Stadium, so I'll go with that one. Yeah. At Alex Shirley 10 asks, what are the worst NFL drafts you have covered? Worst NFL drafts I have covered or watched or took interest in. 2013 was pretty bad. 2009 wasn't that particularly great. 2005 wasn't that particularly great. Uh, those would be three in the past, let's say, 10 years that I've watched or covered that were pretty bad. 2002, I don't think was exactly great. That's another one that I would throw into that grouping. At Edsel4, what do you think about athletes wanting an extension even though with 2-3 years left on their contract? And is it stupid? I say this to those athletes that try to hold out wanting an extension. You ultimately are a part of the players' union that allowed those non-guaranteed contracts to come into being in the first place. So if you're holding out from anything, maybe you should hold out from the fucking players' union that caves to the owners and the league and doesn't get those fully guaranteed contracts that the NBA and Major League Baseball players enjoy. I think even hockey, aren't they fully guaranteed too? Fucking NFL. This players' union is weak. It has no balls. And the fact that it still allows this same type of salary system to be in place, that's just ridiculous and stupid. That leads to these type of situations where every year or two a guy's trying to hold out to get more guaranteed money. It is fucking stupid, but it's fucking stupid that the athletes continue to allow this crap to happen from their players' union. They're a part of the union. The union's supposed to work for them. And clearly, in certain cases, they do not. Now, some people will say, well, the players sit there and they want to hold out and but the freaking team could sit there and cut them and how is that fair? I get it. There's a contract. And in theory, you're sitting there and saying, well, there's a contract that both sides are supposed to honor. However, if the team or the owner or whoever in the front office of a team is smart enough to construct an out that is clearly a part of the contract, then they are, meeting the terms of the contract. If they've got an early out or the ability to exercise a termination due to the agreement, then you can't fault the owners or the team for putting it in there and exercising it. That's part of the terms of the contract. Maybe, again, the players and the Players Association, the Players Union, shouldn't be so stupid in allowing this type of crap to happen. Get more guaranteed money. Get rid of this non-guaranteed money. These other leagues can have it. Why can't the NFL? It's just stupid. It is stupid. At JGore492 asked a couple of questions. Who would you say are the front runners to win the National League and American League MVP? In terms of the MVP, I'd probably go in the American League with either Mike Trout or maybe Robinson Cano. Now, obviously, Trout's going to have much better numbers than Cano, but you're talking about a Cano that was a huge free agent signing in the offseason for the Mariners that has come in and provided leadership in that order. He's provided a presence in that order, even if his power numbers haven't been great. And the bottom line is the Mariners are winning. They're playing winning baseball. They're in playoff contention here at the end of July. They're not sellers at the trade deadline. If anything, they could be buyers. I think Robinson Cano deserves some consideration, even though statistically, obviously, a Mike Trout's going to have it over him all night and day. In the National League, Yasiel Puig could be a possibility, but I think at this point in time, from a statistical standpoint, I think I would say Andrew McCutchen is probably the MVP in the National League. In terms of the your other question, who are the front runners to win the Cy Young Award? I believe you asked for both leagues. You might have just done National League, but I threw in both leagues. I think at the NL, I think it's clearly got to be Clayton Kershaw. In the American League, I think it's clearly at this point in time Felix Hernandez, King Felix. I don't even think it's close. At JH Mills 22 rounds out this Q&A by asking, who are your top 5 sports cities? I'm assuming in this country, so we'll go with American sports cities. Top 5 American sports cities. I'm leaving college towns out. I'm going strictly with professional cities here. And for me, the professional cities have to have more than one team, so I'll throw out the Green Bay Packers, and I'll throw out Green Bay there for an example. Portland, I'll throw them out of the equation. Top 5 sports cities. I'll probably go with Chicago, Boston, Minneapolis, New York, and St. Louis. St. Louis is a really good sports city. I've been there. I don't like St. Louis, but I respect them as a sports city, a great sports city. They really support their teams, whether that's the Cardinals, the Blues, the Rams. It's a really good sports city. I definitely agree with that. New York is New York, and not all the teams there are great, but it is a great sports city. They have enough infrastructure to be able to support 2 teams in every single major North American professional sports league. So that's got to count for something. Minneapolis, I think, is a very underrated sports city, and when they finally get the facility for the Vikings that they need, similar to what they got in Target Field for the Minnesota Twins, I think people will look at that as an even better sports city. The people there really support their sports, and even all that time I spent in Iowa, there were a lot of Minnesotans down in Iowa, so I got to see how much those people loved their Minnesota sports teams, and Minneapolis was a really good sports city. Boston, I think, is a really good sports city. Even though I don't always like the attitudes of some of the people in Boston, same thing you could say maybe about Philadelphia, but they're really passionate about their sports and they really love them. And maybe it's a little biased, but I think Chicago's a great sports city too. I really, really do. Other than the Chicago White Sox, they take every other team in that city very, very seriously. It's a really good sports town, though. It really, truly is. They show up and they support their teams. They put money into the teams. They root for their teams. They love their teams. Chicago, again, a really, really good sports city. Thanks to all of you that submitted your questions for this Monday version of the Sunday Sports Q&A. Again, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday Sports Q&As happen on this channel. Tweet your questions to @pfspot_Schlegel in order to get them answered. Check out all the other great content on this channel that's coming up in the week to come, and I'll see you back here again, I guess tomorrow, Tuesday, for another Sports Q&A.